Hello, word wanderers. Welcome to my channel, where we explore fun and practical ways to master the English language, one step at a time. If you haven't subscribed yet, make sure to hit that subscribe button and tap the notification bell, so you never miss a lesson. In this lesson, we will learn about the different functions of the modal verbs, can, could, may, might, must, shall, should, will, and would. Modal verbs have only one form, the base form. We do not add ing, ed, or s to modals. Let's talk about the modal verb can. We use can to talk about present ability. For example, I can speak Spanish. We also use can to ask for or give permission. For example, can I have pizza for breakfast? And to refuse permission, we use can't. No, you can't. We can also use can to make requests. For example, can you make me a pizza? We also use can to talk about general possibilities. For example, it can be cold and rainy in the United Kingdom in March. It's not always cold and rainy, but it is sometimes. We use can't to make deductions when we're sure something is not true or not happening. For example, Rose can't be Ben's sister. He doesn't have a sister. Now let's continue with a different modal verb, could. Ellen could be Ben's cousin. He has about 8. Am I sure? No. But it's a decent guess based on some evidence I have. We use could to make deductions when we think something is possible, but we're not sure. So, how else do we use could? Well, it's actually pretty similar to can in many ways. Earlier, I said we use can to talk about present ability. We use could to talk about past ability. For example, I could see perfectly when I was younger. Now, I'm as blind as a bat. That's a common simile, it means you can't see very well. So, could expresses general ability in the past. To talk about something that was possible on one specific occasion in the past, we usually use was or were able to or managed to, not could. We also use could to make requests. It's more formal and polite than can. For example, excuse me, could you help me look for my glasses? I can't see a thing without them. We also use could to talk about things that are possible in the present or future. For example, my glasses could be in my bag. Another modal verb with similar functions is might. In formal language, we can use might to make requests. For example, might I borrow your umbrella for a moment? But, this isn't really common in everyday speech. Can or could are used much more often when making requests. We also use might to make deductions when we're not sure about something. And here's something important, we can use all of our modals of deduction to talk about the past, as well as the present or future. The structure for the past is, modal plus have plus past participle. For example, where's the fish we're having for dinner? Not sure. The cat might have eaten it. We can also use might plus base verb to talk about things that are possible in the present or future. For example, I might not go to Spain this summer. I might head to Italy to practice my Italian instead. In both cases, I'm not 100% sure, these are just possibilities. Are there any other ways to talk about possibility? Yes. We can also use the modal verb may. For example, we may have to reschedule the meeting if the boss doesn't arrive soon. Now, do you think may is more or less formal than might or could? It's actually more formal. We also use may to ask for permission, and again, it sounds quite formal. For example, may I use the conference room to make a personal call? Even more formally, we use may to give or refuse permission. Yes, you may. No, you may not. We can also use may to make deductions about things we think are probably true, but we're not completely sure. For example, oh dear, the boss looks annoyed. She may not be happy that we canceled the meeting. Or she may just be annoyed that we ate all the donuts. Who knows? Just one more note, in spoken English, we tend to use might more often than may when talking about possibility. Okay, so what if we're sure something is true? We might say something like, the boss must be annoyed that we canceled the meeting, she came all the way from Berlin. We use must to make deductions when we are confident or certain about something. Now, are there any other ways we use must? Yes. We use must to talk about obligations. These are often called internal obligations, because I think it's important to do something. For example, I must call my dad later. It's his birthday. Here, it's my own decision, but I feel it's necessary. We also use must and mustn't to talk about rules and laws, things that are often imposed by others. Let's imagine we're going to the cinema. You must put your phone on silent mode while the film is playing. You mustn't talk loudly during the film. In both cases, these are external obligations, rules that everyone is expected to follow. And finally, we can use must to make strong suggestions or recommendations. For example, you must try the cheddar jalapeno popcorn, it's delicious. It's not an obligation, of course, but I strongly recommend it. Now, let's take a look at should. It's used in a way that's similar to must, but it's less strong. We use should to talk about obligations, and about what's right or wrong to do. For example, you should always wear your seatbelt on the plane. Or, we shouldn't call Timmy now. It's already past midnight. We also use should to make suggestions, and to give or ask for advice. For example, you look pale. You should go see a doctor. Or, should we get a taxi to the airport? Another way we use should is to express expectations, things we think are likely or supposed to happen. For example, the flight should be on time. Or, shouldn't Anna be here by now? She said she'd be arriving an hour ago. We can also make suggestions using shall. We usually use shall with I and we. For example, shall we go to the beach today? We can also use shall to ask for advice. What shall we do with all the burgers we didn't eat? And finally, we use shall to make offers. Shall I help you with them? Let's stick with offers and take a look at our next modal verb, will. For example, I will drive tomorrow so you won't be late. Also, in spoken English, we usually contract will not to won't. We also use will and won't to make promises. For example, I won't be late to pick you up, I promise. We can also use will to make statements and predictions about the future. For example, it looks like it will rain later today, so bring an umbrella. And finally, we use will to make requests, often in a polite but direct way. For example, will you pack us some snacks, please?
Okay, are you still with me? Let's talk about our final modal verb, would. Just like will, we use would to make requests. But which one is more polite and less direct? Listen to these two examples. Will you pass me the map? Would you pass me the map? Would is more polite. It softens the request and sounds more respectful, especially in formal or professional settings. We also use would to give advice. For example, if I were you, I'd turn the map around. You've got it the wrong way up. Did you notice that sentence shows another use of would? That's right. Would can also express hypothetical situations, things that aren't real but imagined. We use would to talk about hypotheticals in the past, present, or future. For example, so, what would you do if I said we were lost? Another example might be, I would have brought the map if I'd known we'd need it. This one refers to a past hypothetical, something that didn't happen. And finally, would is used as the past form of will in indirect speech. Let's compare. Direct speech, we'll find the path again, I promise. Indirect speech, he promised that we would find the path again. So when we report what someone said, will often becomes would. And that's it. We've just covered the most important modal verbs in English, like can, could, may, might, must, shall, should, will, and would, and how to use them in daily conversations. If you found this lesson helpful, give it a like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon so you don't miss future lessons. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next lesson.